Hello, everybody. Stephen Mead here with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. This is our Southern California first time buyer market update for April 30th, 2021. And as you can tell by the title, we're going to talk about some interesting things this week. There's been some news that's kind of happened, and we've gotten questions about this. So I feel like if we're getting questions about it, that means you probably have questions about it too. I'm going to jump in with our normal market update, and then I'm going to talk about the first-time homebuyer tax credit or the potential first-time homebuyer tax credit and what I think that is going to do and is not going to do. So let's jump right in here and kind of go right into where our prices are. And just as a reminder, always remember these are 4 to 6 weeks old because these prices are based on closed prices. A couple other little reminders. We haven't done this in a while, and I think this is important. What we are measuring here is what's called first quartile prices. So what you do is you take the median home price and then you go from the bottom and the median. So it's halfway. It's the median of the median, as you would. And the idea is that we are trying to approximate entry-level home prices, and we do that in two categories. Our entry-level single-family home, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath configuration in Los Angeles and Orange counties, and then our entry-level condo, which is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath configuration, also in LA and Orange counties. And the idea here is that we really wanted to approximate sort of this entry-level market because I think this entry-level market can move in a slightly different way than the rest of the market as a whole. And if you are a first-time home buyer or an entry-level home buyer, this is the market that you're looking in, right? So you want this information. And as far as I know, we're really the only place that's sort of aggregating and slicing the data in this way, which is really surprising because I think if there's anybody who needs data in this market, it is the entry-level home buyers. So let's just look at prices. And the fact is prices really are pretty flat in our entry-level single-family home market. And I think what we're seeing that as a reflection of, and I'm going to tell you why I don't think they're necessarily flat now. They were flat 4 to 6 weeks ago when these contracts were negotiated. And what I think is happening with that is that this was a period of time, remember, when interest rates were rising. But the last 3 to 4 weeks or so, interest rates have actually fallen a little bit. And I think that's kind of refueled the market. Now, if we look here on condos, we actually see that, the condo market's had a much slower, steadier increase. We did have a little bit of a bump in the price, then a drop. But, if you look here between the crest and the troughs, really this 480 number is right on track for that 2-bedroom, 2-bath number. So, prices are great, but I think it's important to understand how these prices affect payments in the real world. And when we look at that, that's really where we see the results of interest rates dropping the last couple of weeks, because look what has happened to our payment levels using this. And also, again, as a reminder, the idea is we really wanted to approximate sort of a more common entry level or first time home buyer scenario. And almost all the statistics I like to quote payments, if you go on the websites or whatever, when they show you a payment, they are basing it on a mortgage payment only and usually 20% down. That's fine, except for the fact that that doesn't describe very many first-time homebuyers, at least not the majority of first-time homebuyers. Most first-time homebuyers want to know what the total payment is going to be, including taxes, mortgage insurance, if there is any, HOA fees, et cetera. They want to know what that total housing figure is, and they want it based on a lower down payment. So that's what we've done here when we calculate these payments. So for our entry-level single-family home at that $700,000 price point, look at where we are. We're at a $3,762 payment. That is actually really, really great news because look at where that is in comparison to 2018. That is only about $170 or so more than our 2017 numbers. That's roughly a 5%, I think, increase. What's interesting about that, and I was going to get into this a little bit later, but when I look at these numbers at the entry-level market, it leads me to believe that we have room for affordability to get worse. And if you're a first-time home buyer, I think it's important to understand something, and I'm going to go off screen share. I just thought of this, and I think this is really an important distinction. So if you're on Facebook and you know any realtors on Facebook, which you probably do statistically, you've probably seen some variation of it's a great time to sell. And that's true. And the corollary might be if you also have some friends who are buying property, you know anybody who's looking to buy, is that it is a horrible time to buy. I actually don't think that's true. I think it is an excellent time to buy. However, I think it is a very difficult time to buy. That part is true. It is not easy to get offers accepted in this market. Inventory is very low, and anybody who tells you it is easy is lying to you. So I think it is a great time to buy. It's just not an easy time to buy. So let me jump back in here. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if you're somebody who's sitting there thinking right now and you're trying to decide, do I think the market is overinflated? Do I think that my situation will get better if I wait? And I think my problem is I don't think it will. I think that there is very much the possibility for this affordability scenario that we see to get worse. And the reason why I think that is because we really haven't risen that much off where we were 3 years ago. I think there is room for these entry level payments to go up and the market to bear that. Inflation alone is going to put upward pressure on that. I'm sure you've heard in the news, lumber prices, some other durable good prices are definitely on the rise. I think there is absolutely room for these payments to go higher than they are. So, if we look here, down here in our entry level condo, we see something similar, except the news is even better. We are technically back to being cheaper than 2018 prices. Now, admittedly, we did have a peak here, right? And this peak was when interest rates were at the highest, this 31.89, and that should tell you something, just how reactive the entry level market is to interest rates. That's the one thing that can kind of be a game changer on this. Interest rates without going up without a corresponding increase in wages. So I'm being very careful to say that without a corresponding increase in wages could alter our supply demand characteristics. Right now, just as a reminder, there is way more demand than there is supply. So putting this into perspective here for our minimum household income, again, we really wanted to put some real numbers on this. This assumes you have no other debt. So this is the minimum household income required to qualify for these payments using conventional financing. We have $92,000 for our entry-level single-family home and $69,800 here for our entry-level condo pricing. These are a lot closer than people expect, primarily because the condos also have HOA fees in there. So moving on to sort of our availability of housing in the market. So some of you have noticed, and if you remember and you listen, we have a couple of milestones, right? Anything above 80% is going to be a very competitive market, and anything above a 90% is a hyper competitive market. And if you look here, where are we this week in terms of our absorption rate? Now, just as a quick reminder, absorption rate is a calculation where we look at all the homes that came on the market in the last 14 days in this category, and we compare that to the number of new escrows in the same market during that time period. And that gives us an idea of how fast is the market absorbing these new listings that are coming up. And if you see here, we are at 92% for entry-level home, still in our hyper-competitive market territory. And look what has happened to our condo market. Boy, it sure has heated up in the last few weeks. These dropping interest rates have just caused people to run out who are sitting on that fence. And now that those payments have come down again to these pre-2018 prices, boy, people are in the market for these condos. So do expect to see price increases, right? What happens when you have a bunch of demand come into the marketplace? What happens to prices? They will go up. So kind of that check is in the mail. We will see it in the numbers 4 to 6 weeks from now, I am sure. Here's our total inventory, right? And this tells kind of the same story as absorption. Both of these are at very low levels of inventory, but look what's happened. For the first time ever in 2021, we have seen that condo inventory drop below our inventory level for our entry-level single-family homes. That's kind of an interesting thing. I'm definitely paying attention, and we've seen a little bit of an increase on our single-family homes, but we're still trending in this very, very low zone of inventory. I'm glad it's a little bit higher than it was, but I mean, really, between these two data points is only about 10, 12% not really big differences in the amount of inventory in the market. Our graph might look like these are bigger changes, but look where we were towards the end of last year. That's really the comparison that you want to look at to understand where we are right now. We went from a point in September of having 1,750 available entry-level single-family homes. Now we are down to around 1,250. That is like, basically a third of the inventory just lopped off. And that explains why we are in the market that we are in if you are a buyer. This is our 14-day still active percentage calculation. And this is another form of saying, how hot is the market this exact instance? And if we're taking a look at this, really, I think the condo thing is telling a story here. This condo market has gotten hotter and hotter over the last few weeks. We are now seeing pretty low numbers there. Some improvement on the single family home front. So, this is not all bad news, though I have a feeling this will be like other increases that we've seen in the past, right? Where they ended up kind of fluctuating back and forth, and we may see another drop in the next week in terms of that entry-level single-family home and get a little bit of that cyclical kind of caterpillar-like action where a bunch of houses come in the market, then they get sucked up and there's nothing. Then some more come on, then they get sucked up. Again, we are very much in an inventory-constricted market. More homes could be sold if there were more homes available. And finally, let's talk about our weak supply of homes. We have hit a new low for our entry-level condos at just over 4 weeks. And we have hit, not a new high, but at least a little bit better of a number at just under 3 weeks here, to about 2.71 weeks for our entry-level single-family homes. So, that number is a little bit better, but is this really anything to write home about compared to where we were last year in terms of our weeks of inventory? No, it's not. We are still very much in an inventory constricted marketplace. And now I want to take a second and I want to talk about what's been in the news. President Biden has put forth this first-time home buyer tax credit. It does have to go through Congress, so it isn't a real thing yet, as far as I know, unless that's changed today and I just haven't looked. But let's talk about what the effects of that are going to be, because I think that is going to do some things for you that are very beneficial that you are not expecting, and it is not going to do for you what you're hoping it's going to do. So I'm going to start off with the bad news first. The bad news is, in an inventory constricted market like we have, this is not going to result in you getting a $15,000 windfall. And I think that's what people think. Well, it's a tax credit. Of course I'm getting $15,000. No, I think what's going to happen is you are going to pay $15,000 more for houses. Whenever you have a situation where supply and demand are way out of whack, when there's a benefit like this that comes along the market, right? Like, this is a market benefit that is happening. That benefit is primarily going to go to the sellers. It is not going to go to the buyers. So that's the bad news. If you were hoping that houses will be functionally $15,000 cheaper, they will not. They won't even stay the same. I think they'll actually be $15,000 more expensive. This benefit, in my prediction, will go almost entirely to the seller. But there's a caveat. One of the very smart things about this credit is that it helps solve one of the number one problems that entry-level buyers have. The number one problem for entry-level buyers in Southern California is not that they don't make enough money, it's that they don't have enough money in savings. So what this does is, while I do think this will raise the price of housing by $15,000 or possibly even more, it will do something else for you. And what that is that it will result in, at the end of the year, you will get cash back in your pocket. So this is like adding essentially a $15,000 seller credit to every property. And in this market, getting a seller credit is very difficult. So if you're like most entry-level home buyers, you are constricted by cash to close. You barely have enough. So you close on a home and you have no money for renovations, painting, appliances, doing all these things maybe that you want to do. This home buyer credit will absolutely help you in that way. And I think that really is a big benefit. I don't think we should look over that, even though it's not necessarily going to be a pricing benefit. It will not make homes any cheaper to buy. The price will actually go up. The difference is you will actually get something back at the end of the year to offset that increase in the home prices. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We love your questions and comments, so absolutely keep them coming. If you're watching this on Facebook, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, just send me an instant message. And yeah, on Tuesday, we'll have our whole market update, which isn't focused on entry-level buyers, and that is also for Southern California, Los Angeles, and Orange counties. And we will talk to you real soon.